Hello everyone, it's the Struts here. We're in the studio and we just got done talking about supporting the Rolling Stones.
Starting the band in the beginning.
Where we want to be.
Cover songs with Randy Jackson and Where We Want to Be.
And we're telling you to watch the video right now. You won't be disappointed.
Let's do this. Zach Sang Show.
Hello, beautiful humans. We got Dan, and we welcome to the studio Luke, Adam, Jed,
Hello.
Gethin.
Oh, correct.
Absolutely.
It's the Struts.
Whoa!
Hooray.
Yeah.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you for hanging out.
Thanks for having us.
This couch is beautiful.
Oh, that means a lot.
It's lovely.
You wouldn't know that, like, before we put it in our studio, it was actually in the dumpster getting ready to be thrown
Really?
out.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got lucky.
Well, you know, not only is it comfortable, but environmentally friendly as well. Yeah.
I recycle.
Free.
And now some of the most expensive butts have sat on that couch.
Mm-hmm.
You all included. Thanks for spending time. You were able to manifest energy there before we started. You did like a whole little scream thing. How do you get ready for a show? Because the way the world describes you, and there's been many different things used, but one thing that is pretty common is like force of nature. Like you leave everything you have on that stage. How do you warm up? How do you begin?
I guess it's, well, firstly, I think the outfits kind of really help.
Okay.
Funny enough, it does. You know, a lot of people sort of say, you know, where does all this kind of come from? And the truth be told, style's always been like an important part of the show. But as we've kind of toured more extensively, it's also becoming like a thing to help you get into the zone. You know, you put on your outfit, and then, you know, the makeup's on. It's like, okay, ready. You know, I would not like to think what I would be like, you know, jumping on stage wearing what I wore all day, you know, on the tour bus, you know, because there'd be no sense of occasion. So a lot of hyping up, a lot of dancing around, screaming, stuff like that, you know.
What do you do when you come off? How do you come down?
Yeah, that's the difficult bit. It's, I think, I personally, I sort of have a nice shower.
Okay.
Cool off.
Yeah, to get rid of the sweat.
You know, warm down. I mean, that's really important. Warm down, and then just get back on the bus, have a little something to eat, and just lay back and sort of wait till 3 a.m. to fall asleep.
You have to, right? Because you're
Yeah.
jazzed.
Exactly.
Are you processing what you just did when you're in that shower? Are you analyzing it, or are you in a different space?
Not really. Not really. I mean, when the show goes well, which is, you know, a lot of the time, it's very rare that we kind of like all look at each other and think, oh, that was a disaster. But it's kind of like you said, you leave everything there. So you come off and it's just like, great show, everyone, you know. And then, but to be honest, yeah, the shower is part of the ritual. I kind of lay back and just go, I did my job. It's good.
Is there two sides of you? Is there like, because you talk about the outfits and the style, bringing something out of you. Is it two different versions of yourself that you channel?
Yeah, I definitely say there is a character that I slip into. And that's become more apparent the more we've toured. You know, because like back in the early days, it'd be great. You know, we would just roll around in the van, and then we'd turn up at the show. You know, I'd watch the guys lug in their gear, you know, and then I would order the drinks, and then we'd sort of like sit around and chat and drink, and then listen to a couple of songs, and then jump up on stage, and that was it. You know, and we wouldn't have another show for another 3 or 4, 5 days, sometimes a week. But now we're doing it so often. It's important to kind of like slip into a character and almost take on a role, so that you can sustain a level of energy and what you want to put on and what your audience expects as well. You know, because like you said, I mean, word gets around, people expect something, and I think it's important to deliver that.
I understand that, right? Because when you slip into the character, you're leaving anything that is personal at the door, and you're entering into something new, right? Not new, but like you're entering into a different side. So anything that exists on the other side, that's on that side. That stays there.
Yeah, and personally, I think that's what makes the best performers. I mean, it's easier said than done. You know, when you're really tired, or you've had an argument with your girlfriend, or you've had some bad news. Those are the times that really test you, and it separates the boys from the men. It's
true,
so to speak.
I think the crowd respect that as well, because they do the same thing. They want to come to the show and let their hair down and put everything aside. So everyone in the room's doing it, really.
They come expecting something out of you guys, but also something for themselves. They want something. There's a goal for the night. They're giving you a ticket price. They're giving you time. They're giving you energy. They want something.
I would say as well, the audience has a huge part to play in it. We do a lot of meet and greets, where before the show, like, we say hello to like a bunch of people, and we take pictures and stuff like that. And sometimes when the day's been particularly long, and those kind of rare occasions where you really just can't get in the right headspace, meeting your fans like face to face, and they're so excited, you're like, okay, you walk away from that going, come on, get over yourself. Like, they're here to be like entertained. They're so excited. Like, this is important to them, and it just reminds you like why you're here
It's
and why
purpose.
you're doing it. Yeah.
It's cool. You had an interesting past. The two of you guys is where the band starts with, right?
It was these two.
These two. I'm so sorry.
The
These
two guys on the couch.
So your musical interest at the very beginning was gospel music, and it was Michael Jackson. But you started dancing, not singing. You didn't sing until you were like 16, right?
Correct.
You wanted to be a dancer?
Yeah, more than anything. I wanted to I wanted to dance, and I wanted to learn ballet, and my dream was to just get out of the house and arrive at this posh boarding school where I could sort of like live, eat and breathe my passion at the time. And my parents, probably for a good reason, just weren't comfortable of doing that.
What do you think it was?
They just decided that they didn't want other people bringing up their children.
I get that.
And looking back now, I think it was the right thing to do. And I don't know if I could have been a ballerina either, to be honest.
But do you think you would have ever sang if you ended up going to that boarding school and focusing solely on dance?
Honestly, I don't know, and I probably wouldn't have. That's the honest truth.
Who told you? Who said, hey, why don't you try singing?
It was something that always happened, whether it was sort of like things that would happen in school, talent competitions that, I'd be encouraged to kind of enter. I would sort of like take songs that I love and sort of choreograph them, or Michael Jackson, like imitation or whatever. And they would say, come on, why don't you sing it? And I'd be like, well, I can't. That's not really what I do. And it was only until I was cast as the Pharaoh at School Productions version of Joseph and His Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Wow.
The Andrew Lloyd Webber musical.
That's a big role.
And it was like an Elvis Presley character. And it's a really rock and roll song. It is a fantastic track. And of course I had no choice. It was like, I have to kind of sing. And lucky enough, it was kind of like in a low register. It wasn't anything too screamy or whatnot, or dare say like Aerosmithy or anything like that. It was kind of Elvis. And I did it. I completely like immersed myself in it, and I had a standing ovation. Wow. And that was it. From then on, it was like I had this realization, like, wow, I can fuse these two things together. And I remember this woman coming up to me afterwards, and she grabbed me by the shoulders and shook me around and said, "A star is born." And then I was kind of like, wow, this is I could get used to this.
It's crazy. And then you go into bands.
Yeah.
You start, and the both of you are doing bands as teenagers, and eventually the two of you connect, but you were wrapping up other bands you were in?
Yeah, they both kind of did their own course, and it got to that age when everyone wants to go to university,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And my band went to uni, and then your band did the same? Yours band had already broken up. Mine was breaking up.
Got it.
So then it was kind of like we connected and then started writing songs together, and then my band did break up eventually, and then we just carried on, the two of us.
Why didn't you guys go to university?
I actually
You
did.
did.
Funny enough, I actually did. So the band that I was in before this one, we did what we call a gap year.
Wow, you made that sound way more fancy.
Yeah, a gap year. And well, people say it like that because a lot of middle class kids, they go to Uganda and
Yeah.
they get
Find
cultural
themselves.
experiences. It's just a way of getting pissed up 24/7 abroad, basically spending
Literally.
daddy's money. But we all decided to take a year out and kind of pursue the band that we were in at the time. And as it got ever closer and closer, you had to start sort of like applying for universities and things like that. And I was working as a cleaner, and I carried on pretty much right up until the last point. The band broke up, and I had about 4 or 5 weeks where I had to basically enroll if I wanted to go to uni. And I thought, right, well, I've been a cleaner, like cleaning toilets for just over a year. And I was like, if the government can pay me some money to go off and I study, I can find another band and, I can just do that.
It's better than cleaning.
It is. So I did go to university. I went to study media studies and something else. I can't even remember. I was there for a month. I got the student loan, the first installment. Never turned up to a class. I was just auditioning for different bands in Bristol. And going out, having a great time, and very quickly sort of realised, oh my God, I did go to a few classes, and everyone's taking notes, and they're talking about these things called essays, and a year prior to that, I had studied 3 years at Performing Arts.
You don't know these things.
We did an essay once a year, just to sum up what we'd kind of learned. It was all physical activity, So I was so behind. I was like, I'm really out of my depth here. So I quit. And then literally 2 weeks after I moved back in with my parents, that's when I was put in touch with Adam.
Wow. And who puts the two of you in touch?
He was our manager at the time.
Yeah, well, he wasn't managing either of us at the time, but I met him when I was like 14, and I'd write songs and send them to him, and he would just, kind of just help me out and say what I needed to do. And then I just said to him one day on the phone, because he was like, Adam, I think you should go to university. And I said, I don't want to go. I want to do music. I can't read. I didn't do music at school, so I wasn't going to go to university when I can't read music or anything like that. So then I just said, do you know any singers? And he's like, I just found this guy on MySpace. How long ago it was? 10 years ago.
Love it.
And then, then Luke came up to Derby where I lived and started writing.
So you knew that music was what you want. You didn't try school, none of that. You knew that this is what you were going to give your life to.
Yeah, like when I was like 12 or 13, started my first band and then gigged and did that and I met Luke when I was 17, so.
What's your biggest strength? Is it writing records or is it performing and obviously the musicality of it?
I don't know. I think I'm bang average about everything.
I definitely would say across the board, I think we're 4 very lucky individuals. Just kind of when you really think about the sheer, how naive someone has to be, really, to kind of throw away
everything,
every smart decision and every smart piece of advice that people are trying to give them and say, no, I want to carry on. The fact that we're here right now is, it's a 1 in a million thing.
But that's what it takes, right?
It does.
The ability to be solely focused and know what's in your gut, what you're meant to do, no matter what anybody else ends up telling you.
Yeah.
I think the strength is hard work and determination. Doesn't matter how good I am at anything, but I've always just given it everything, and I think we all have. And I think that's what pays dividends in the end.
And that makes sense too, right? You might not be incredible or stellar at the beginning, but if you give your all to it, you're going to get better over time.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
You do.
And like, you know, we always said, you make your own luck, really. I think if you put your end of the bargain in, then it's kind of up to the universe what goes on. But as long as you put your 50% in, then you just got to hope that the other 50% comes from the ether. And luckily, it has so far.
Why is that? I mean, regardless of what you say, I do believe there has to be something special, at least between the two of you, that was able to catalyst all of this. Because you did together start writing music that started the Struts. Do you remember the first record the two of you created together?
Yeah. Well, there was quite a few.
First one was Maggie.
There was a song called Maggie,
which was 2 songs that Luke had written, and I was just, why don't we just make it into one? And we had a
that's what he's good at.
And then we had
one.
She Struts Around.
She Struts Around, and we like to write songs about girls. There was Delilah,
Helena
as well. Helena. I mean, it was quite funny. I think for the two of us, as a songwriter, you go through the process where you have to write lots of bad things.
That's how you learn.
You know, it's like that with anything in life. It's like kissing. You know, you start out and it's like, oh my God, it's everywhere. You know, like the teeth are bashing and, you know, you end up like choking, pulling away too quick and, you know, maybe staying there too long sometimes, not brushing your teeth when you're meant to, you know. And songwriting's like that. You go through like the motions of, okay, similar chords all the time. And it's just, you got to keep going and going and going, and that's kind of what we did. And then we had a couple of like good little golden moments that we ended up going and recording at a fantastic studio in London called Air Studios, and we didn't even have the rest of the band. We got an actual a group of session players to come in and rehearse with us.
Oh wow!
Because we just wanted to get the music down. And then that was the songs that we used to go around to the record labels
and sell yourself.
Yeah, and we eventually got signed from that.
Who was selling you? The two of you?
It was me and Ads with our manager at the time. We would turn up with the CD.
No, we played acoustic.
And we would play acoustically. We would both have acoustic guitars, and I'd have like a harmonica sometimes, and
we'd just sit in people like these executives' offices.
Yeah. And sometimes it was great, and then other times literally just be like this.
Brutal.
Are we done? Yeah? All right, I'm out.
But that gets you set up, right? That thickens your skin to literally perform in front of anybody.
Yeah, it does.
If you can sing through that and still give a show when somebody's literally judging you and looking at the clock at the same time.
Yeah. I think there's something a lot more scary having to stand there in front of someone, like literally one person, and in an office, and especially those offices in London, they're like, you know, they're the fish tank ones. So like everyone in the office is like looking around, like there's these 2 guys with like funny long hair and like silly boots on, and you know, looking like they've been taken out of a 70s fashion catalogue, and like you can't hear anything, but you can just see him like in the office, and the boss sort of like just shaking his head, looking like that, looking around, you know. That's scary.
Yeah. Because they could have thought it was an exorcism, they could have thought it was anything. There's 1,000 different things.
Yeah. Security guards like, is everything fine in here? Like, yeah.
Did you know rock music was the way you wanted to go from the beginning?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something that when I was sort of like in my early mid-teens, when I started to hear sort of like older rock, like from the 70s, like Queen, AC/DC, the Rolling Stones, and obviously like the Beatles and everything that kind of comes with that era, I sort of found home, and then that was it.
But what was it? What made it home?
It just resonated. It was just like, wow, this is so me. It's, and I think when you think about the music that was out at the time, it was great, but it wasn't as fun. It wasn't as camp. It wasn't as musical. I mean, at the time we had, you know, there was the Strokes here in the States, which are a great band, but it's very you know, it's garage kind of punk rocky, and there's a lot of attitude, and you know, you compare that to Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. You know, that's when I would hear songs like that, that's what would resonate with me, and I'd be like, wow, this is great. This is kind of got something that my childhood hero Michael Jackson and the Jacksons had, but it's like in this format which is rock,
I get
which I really sort of like.
Is it commercial or is it catchy?
It was just something about the music that I was just like, this is me, and this is my world. And I wouldn't even say it was anything to do with the fact that not a lot of other people were listening to it, because it was actually quite the opposite. All myself and my friends at the time, we were all music snob junkies, you know, where like that's all we would listen to through the 60s, the 70s, and we didn't care about anything really that was happening contemporary wise.
Knowing that, do you understand the battle that you face when you're trying to bring back rock?
Yeah, the impossible mission. But we've been on that mission, like I've been on it. I mean, I wouldn't say like bring back rock, but I would say playing that and being able to make a living off it, and then having what we deem as like success. Yeah. That is like the mission. And it's always been the same since I was 16. It's always been like that. And I think it's very exciting now that there's like a bunch of bands kind of coming up which are kind of singing from the same hymn sheet as us. And there seems to be like this resurgence in like rock which has a little bit more of a throwback sound.
I like the term you used, right? Singing from the same hymn sheet. When you're creating music now and you're in the studio, whether it was the last album, Young and Dangerous, or the first one, are you conscious and aware while you're making the music to not sound like things that have come before?
I definitely say we've always made an effort to wear our influences on our sleeve, because that's what makes us us. You know, taking bits of Queen, taking bits of the Stones, Oasis, Supergrass, anything that we love, but we've always felt it's important to inject a little bit more of the 21st century into that. So we're not afraid of modern production techniques. We're not afraid of synthesizers, 808s. You know, we think that's kind of like what makes things interesting. We don't want to just regurgitate a genre which everybody's heard before.
That's not really what people want, right? People want what you are and what you represent, and the music of it, but also the live instruments of it. They want your version. Yeah,
it's like if you want to listen to a band that sounds like Queen, just go and listen to Queen, or like, you know what I mean,
or
like,
a cover band.
It's there. So like we want to just take, like you say, Luke said, just take the influences and push it in our own way and make it the Struts, you know. And we love all the new modern stuff that's going out production wise. It makes it much more interesting and fun.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Right?
Yeah, it's creative, and it's like, oh, let's try that, you know, instead of just laying it down in the studio.
It's kind of good when you're not sure about it.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of like, can we get away with that? Like, is this a little bit too much?
That's how you know you're onto something?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's been things in the past that, you know, I love straight away, and it's like, yes, this is fantastic. And then 10 months go by and you're listening back, and in fact, some of the things that you probably weren't 100% comfortable with at the very beginning, those are the things that kind of like grow on you more, and you perceive as a lot more unique and special.
And that's, I don't know, that's what makes the Struts, right? It's those moments that you're uncomfortable with at the beginning, but eventually grow on you.
Yeah.
When you see a band like Greta Van Fleet, right? Are they a cautionary tale, or are they some form of a motivational tale?
It's a very perplexing one in a lot of ways. Like I said, we've always you know, approached our work to sort of inject new things into what we do. I do find it extremely interesting that they've literally sort of like regurgitated, you know, to a T and very well, a certain time and like a certain couple of bands,
Yeah.
and have had huge success very, very quickly. So in a lot of ways it's confusing, but yet it's also inspiring as well. It goes to show that if a band on a whole sort of like truly believe that, you know, what they're doing, despite probably what people think,
It's that determination.
I think it's just it's kind of just like it's blind passion.
Yeah.
And I think it pays off. And I think that they're probably like a unique band in the sense that it's not being like led by one or two people. You know, that the vision you can clearly see is led by the four of them. But, you know, on the whole, it's kind of like, I think it's one of those things that time will tell. You know, it really is.
You're right.
We have no idea. I think it's great for the genre. I find it quite funny that we get mentioned alongside them because in my opinion, we couldn't be more different.
I agree with you, but you represent the music, even your stage show, completely different. But it's the rock genre, and I think
Yeah.
it's so far and few between right now from like a pop standpoint or from like a mainstream standpoint, and from any band that has, you know, like Harry Styles, right? I believe he did a lot for what rock could be in the future too with that album, using all live instruments and changing the way at least younger kids heard that style of music. There's just so few of you.
I get
That
I
you're
get
naturally
that.
looped.
And I think it's good. I at the end of the day, I don't ever want to compete with people. I want people to love the Struts as equally as they love Greta Van Fleet, as equally as they love Imagine Dragons, the 1975, but for different reasons. And I think as long as we're ourselves and we carry on just doing what we do, I think that happens, you know.
Yeah, you're pretty unique. What do you want people to love you for?
Music.
Number one.
First of all, I mean, it's the music. It's always been about the music, and that's one thing that I think as a group we're very confident when we think about it. It's like, you know, we could be popular for a lot of reasons, but I feel like it's our music and the live show first and foremost which has got us here now. And when I think about that, I feel comfortable because I feel like we're doing the right thing. So yeah, music first, and then when they come to see us, you know, which is a completely different experience altogether.
How does a record start for you guys? Does it start with a lyric? Does it start with somebody just jamming? We can go like Body Talks, right? The original was great. Then you add Kesha to it. Another level. It's a really great record. How does a record like that begin?
Well, there's certain songs sort of like have their own unique way. Some tracks on the album were literally the four of us sat in a house churning ideas out, and then we had bad idea. Oh, good song, really good song. Bang, put that to a side, keep going, da-da-da. And then there's some other times where me and Adam will, depending on where we were in the world at that time, in between the touring, we would just jump into the studio with a producer that we've probably worked with before and we trust, and then we just get like a rhythm going, or Adam's got like a riff, or, you know, there's some sort of like nucleus of an idea, and then it just kind of just gets built on. But I tell you what, we work extremely hard. I mean, there are many times when you're coming up with a track, you've got a great verse, you do like this brilliant pre-chorus, and you're feeling like this is great. We never just give up and turn left at the chorus, so to speak, you know, which I feel like a lot of people in rock music do. We will literally be pacing up and down for 2 days straight with the same 8 bars just on repeat until something happens, whether it's like a lyric or just a melody, which like everyone just turns around and says, that's it.
What is that? Why are you doing that and nobody else is, or nobody else was? Why were people giving up at that point?
You know what? I don't know. I think we're lucky that we're we're pushed. I think we've got great relationships with, you know, some people that we've known for quite a while who have helped nurture our sound. And at times where we're kind of like, you know, fatigue kind of sets in, you know, they're the ones stood there going, come on, you can do it. Like, you know, we can do this.
And that's what it takes.
You know, we can do this. Like, you've got so much potential. Just keep pushing and pushing. And eventually it happens. But that's well, the one thing we've always felt is the most important aspect of any band is the music.
When you guys are in the studio, are you all attached instruments, or how are, like, does it ever start with a jam? Like,
not really.
The ones in the house did.
Yeah.
Like when we'd write, we'd all be kind of with electric drum kit and we'd be plugged in, and I'd say probably 4 or 5 on the record did. Others would be kind of ideas that would be overdubs. So you might have like a demo part or like a demo drum beat, and then Geth would come in and sort of play it and give it his own spin on top of that.
And from the first album that you release to the second, how has your sound evolved? And like, is there anything you learned from the first that you changed for the second album?
I think the first one has more immaturity in it, funny enough, and it definitely has a lot of like young strut mentality in it.
What is that?
It's very fearless.
That's it.
And almost a little bit naive at times, which is great. But I think so much happened between the first album, coming over to the United States, signing with Interscope, going on huge tours.
Yeah, Rolling Stones.
Yeah, the Stones, Guns N' Roses, eventually Foo Fighters, you know, which was all massive learning experiences. So by the time it came to recording, you know, the next album, I think it just happens subconsciously. You naturally sort of just want to talk about different things and feel passionate about different things.
Does your strategy change?
Well, first and foremost, the most important thing that we wanted to do was have an album which we felt was equally as strong as the debut, because we were very proud of the first one. And I mean, over here in the States, songs like Could Have Been Me and Kiss This really kind of like set the band on fire over here. And we felt like it was a great album, and it was kind of like, okay, what's next? And I think a lot of eyes were on us, and we were under a massive amount of pressure. So we were just like, okay, whatever it takes. I mean, it did take a little bit longer than expected, but for good reason. And I think what we've done with Young and Dangerous is not only kind of like meet that criteria, but I think we've grown, and I think it's personally a stronger album than Everybody Wants.
I agree.
It definitely is.
Throughout that journey, and you talk about having pressure on you, having the endorsement of the Rolling Stones, right? And in addition to that, the person who dressed Freddie Mercury was doing your fashion at the same time. We're talking about two historic, iconic, I mean, I can't stress enough what they've done in music and what they represent. When that happens, both of those things, are you flattered? Are you, why me? Are you, holy crap, how do I meet what they kind of see in me?
I think at the time you don't really think about it, and there's like, I mean, the first time we supported the Stones, it was quite a while ago, and in all honesty, I think we were that naive. It was like, we deserve this, you know. And I remember when we found out that when we got the gig, it was 2 weeks before the show, and we were playing this tiny little pub in a place called Scunthorpe.
The Lincoln Imp, it was.
The Lincoln Imp, right? And we were upstairs in what they called the dressing room. It was basically like a little bedsit up the top.
A closet?
Flea-infested mattress and all sorts. And we were genuinely contemplating the career and, you know, what we were doing right, you know, what were we doing wrong. And we got the call, like, hey, this is happening. You're going to go to France, open up for the Rolling Stones. 75,000 people, 2 weeks, don't tell anyone. And it was, you know, you have those moments that up to that point, you're playing all those small, crappy shows in these tiny little pubs going up and down the country. And I think the only thing that really keeps you going is a sense of like, you can make it. We do deserve it. Like, we put so much effort in. So at the time, it was like, yes, we deserve it. This is our break. And I think looking back now, it's kind of like a combination of luck and hard work. I don't think anyone deserves anything. And I think it's important to remind yourself that you are lucky, and it's an honor, first and foremost. It's like the amount of emotions that were flying around that show. I mean, we were watching the sound check, and this happens a lot of times when I see my heroes on stage. 3 times I've cried. Once was listening to them play Wild Horses, and I just started to like quiver. And then the second time was seeing Paul McCartney on stage, and then the third time was here in LA watching Brian Wilson.
He's
on his, and he came out again, and I just didn't even plan it.
What album did you see Brian Wilson?
It was the Pet Sounds anniversary when he came to the theatre. I can't remember where.
I have goosebumps.
Yeah, so it is a huge honour, and it's quite funny once you see it there in person, and you're thinking that somehow on this amazing journey that this band or artist has been on, you're this tiny speck in their story. If someone was to kind of like look at the history books, they'd be like, Rolling Stones, you know, Stade de France, opened up by the Struts, you know, that's us.
A speck is
that's what's cool.
Never thought of it like that. It's pretty cool.
You talk about now knowing that you don't deserve knowing that people don't deserve anything. So maybe not what do you deserve now, but what are you working towards? What keeps it worth it?
The fans and the shows. I think more than ever, and I think this is one of the reasons why a lot of people are attracted to the shows and why they keep coming, is, you know, it's extremely hard to gain commercial success in a band, and, you know, get songs played on the radio, which is, you know, why we're so thankful, and that's why we're here to say thank you to you guys. But it's getting to the point where you need to be able to like play, and I think that's what keeps us going.
Is there any part of you guys that feel responsibility to keep rock and live instruments on stage moving forward?
I don't know. I think there's always going to be bands, I guess, that are doing it regardless. I think the one thing we've always wanted is we want to be like the biggest band in the world. Like, that was the thing we said as when we started the band. I think that hunger keeps us going. And I don't think we feel any responsibility, but it would be nice if, you know, our dreams come true and we are one of the biggest artists in the world, and we just so happen to play guitars as well on stage, you know.
And
it's more for us rather than for anyone else, really. Like, we're doing this because we want to, as a collective, get to where we want to be.
I actually remembered your question because when I was talking, I kind of forgot what the I was talking about. But what we're working towards is, I would say, is growing our audience, and is, you know, coming back to LA, coming back to New York, coming back to America, wherever it is around the world, and seeing our audience just double in size, which is what's been happening over the last couple of years, and that's
exciting.
That's what we're working towards, you know.
One thing that baffles me with our audiences is we can have 7-year-olds and 77-year-olds, and they're all wearing the same merchandise, and it's really bizarre looking at. I can't think of many bands that have that mass appeal. Like, it's bizarre. We're watching it grow and watching some very strange things going around us, but it's pretty amazing.
But that's the music, right? Like, the music it's not, the lyrical content isn't intense, it isn't vulgar, it's catchy, it's hooky, it's big. Like, it grabs you. I think Body Talks is a hit, man. Like, I think the way it jumps out at you and the way it brings you in, and the fact that there's real instruments being played, I don't know. Older people, it sparks nostalgia, and new people, younger kids, a lot of times you're
It's something
introducing them to
new
new
for them.
sounds.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something they
Something
never
new.
get.
Exactly that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the cool thing about that record, I mean, especially everything that happened with Kesha, I'm just so glad that it really happened like naturally.
It was, what was it, like her brother or something?
So I mean that's
Oh,
a little
yeah.
bit a little bit after, but we first met her at a college show that we were both playing at, and she was like headlining it, and we were on like a little bit earlier on during the day, and she was already aware of us, and I remember we had like some conversation in the catering area, and she was like really cool, and her and Jed like kind of kept in touch for a while, and after we'd written Body Talks, we did say like, you know, it'd be cool to get some sort of like duet on this album, and we were playing around with like all these ideas, and Body Talks just seemed to be the one that was like, when you listen to the lyrics, it's like it's about two people having this connection on the dance floor. That's the way I see it anyway. And you know, we just basically reached out to her, and the funny thing is she then confirmed and was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I flew into LA on a day off on tour to cut the vocal with her, because I wanted to be there in the room with her.
So you didn't recut your vocal, just came to cut hers?
We kind of did a little bit of both. I already had my lead there, and she sat down and she was like, man, I'm not even going to try and do an impression of her actually. She just said, I don't even know the words to this. I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, when you asked me, I listened to the first 10 seconds. I was like, yeah, I'm in. So, you know, we went through the song, and then, you know, I sort of like was building like harmonies with her and things like that. And then for the last like hour or so, just before she left, I was like, right, let's set up the mic, and me and you were just gonna start scatting, and all the stuff that you hear, like all the screams and the laughing, like it's all genuine. It was us having a Mick Jagger, Tina Turner moment.
That's great.
Go around the mic like, you know, yo baby, and she's there like, oh baby, you know. It was very fun.
That's special stuff, man.
Yeah,
and it's
but it was
Kesha.
organic.
Yeah,
That's what I liked about it. It wasn't premeditated. It wasn't like, hey, you know, this could be really good for you and this could be good. It was nothing to do with that. And actually, in hindsight, I think it's even more special, considering the journey that she's been on personally, you know, especially for like the last 5 years. And if you listen to like her last album, she's like changing and she's reinventing herself. And I think, I mean, I can't speak for her, but maybe one of the things that sort of attracted her to kind of like doing this was kind of like, you know what, it's something new, and it's a little bit different, and you know what, I'm going to get my teeth into this, and I just feel privileged to be a part of like this journey that she's on as she naturally evolves into something bigger and better than what people have known before.
A bigger speck on her history.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
No, I think the album is phenomenal front to back. I like every song, but
thank you.
Prima Donna, like me, is by far my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What goes into making a song like that?
So when we talked about pacing around trying to write a chorus
Yeah.
for 2 days, that was the song that took about
The longest.
3 days.
Well, it was worth it. It's paying off.
It was really
Yeah.
good. There were so many titles flying around. The first one was I'm the king of rock, I'm the king of rock, I'm the king of rock and roll.
I vetoed that.
And like I was like, yeah, man, I can do this. You know, like if anyone
Nah.
can sing that, I can sing
Blind
that.
confidence.
I was like that for about 5 hours, and then I just sort of went outside, had a cigarette, and listened to it in my head, and I was like, I can't do that. and then it was the thing with that song is, yes, we had everything else apart from the chorus, and then it was like this. There was a rhyme which was like the honor and the Madonna, prima donna. It was like, yes, that's it.
and
And then from that, it was like, okay, we
you
know what
wanna-
this is about. Like, it's about prima donna. Let's write about this guy who lives in a small town in the middle of the countryside in England. He's completely deluded. and he's like going into his local pub, kicking the door down in a big furry outfit.
He thinks he's the king of rock and roll.
Yeah, basically, you know, it was me personified in those 6 hours, thinking I could have sang that chorus, basically, into a song.
Now, did you guys always envision yourselves playing like this glam rock when you were getting into music?
I wouldn't have said it was. For me, it was more like what minimum talent at the time as a 13-year-old kid with the guitar. As soon as I kind of had 4 power chords and I could write a song, it was kind of get together with your friends in the garage. But I just always loved playing in a band, but it wasn't necessarily glam at the time, like as a teen.
How do you join? How do you find each other?
I got a Facebook message from their manager. They've been looking for a drummer for a while, and I looked at my others folder, and there's this guy that I had no idea who he was. He was he just hits me up and goes, yeah, goes, do you want to come up to Derby and meet the guys and like audition for this band? And I was like, yeah, because I was at uni. I was like not doing well. So yeah, I went up, met the guys, like the glam rock thing, like the ambition I liked, you know, like because I was in a few bands, but no one seemed to want to do anything big. Then meeting these guys, they were just like, they wanted to like own the world.
Yeah, you be the biggest rock band in the world. We deserve to open for the Rolling Stones in front of 80,000 people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was our headspace back then.
Really, when you say it out loud, it's always crazy.
But again, like I said, that's what gets you through the difficult times.
You're right.
Is a tremendous amount of self-belief. I mean, when you really think about, when I look back on some of those times, you know, I kind of cringe, but it is kind of what gets you from A to B to C. And yeah, I honestly, I'm very happy that things have gone the way that they have, at the pace that they have. I mean, I can speak for everyone. I think sometimes we have been a little bit frustrated that, you know, our rise to, you know, success hasn't been as quick as a band like Greta Van Fleet. But then again, I'm not 100% sure that we would have been, or myself personally, would have been able to handle that in the right way.
But I think you've had a different rise to success than Greta Van Fleet. And I do think that maybe people will attack me for this, but I would love to talk to Greta Van Fleet because I'm a big fan of their music and I appreciate the art they create. I think a lot of the reason that they really rose to the top and a lot of people's, you know, attention was due to the fact that they are so heavily inspired, almost down to a T, like you said, by everything that's come before. Whereas with you guys, it's more of a channeling and a collection of different things that have inspired, but it's definitely with your own taste and with your own feeling and your own everything. There's something unique to you.
The way I've always seen it, and this is kind of like what I tell people, that the music that we're creating in some ways is very unique. The band itself is unique. I mean, the way that we came together and met is unique. The look is unique, and our pathway from where we started to where we want to be is also unique and unto itself, something that, you know, I doubt will ever kind of be replicated.
Do you know how Mick Jagger first heard of you guys, or was like
so when we actually got Jed and Geth into the band, we did like a small couple of like tours in the UK, which would probably be only about a couple of weeks at a time. And then one of our songs started getting played in Paris.
Cool.
Despite never being played in the UK. And up still to this day, we've never been played in the United Kingdom on major radio.
What?
Paris was suddenly playing the hell out of our songs. So we suddenly went over there, you know, across the channel and, you know, in our little white van. And we were playing like, you know, 800 capacity venues and really cool music festivals, and it was like, wow, this is like happening. And we discovered like the power of radio, and we just toured through France for like a year on and off. We would go there about 3 times sometimes, and we just started gaining a genuine reputation of, you know, one being like very wild and party animals, and yet a great show, great music, and what I heard was there was a band that was meant to be opening for the Stones.
Okay.
They dropped out 2 to 3 weeks before the show. And there was obviously a committee saying, okay, well, what are we going to do? And someone in that committee had seen us live and was like, look, there's this band from the UK. I think they can handle a big audience. You know, what do you think? And you know, as far as I'm aware, Mick kind of has to approve everything. So I think he listened to it and said, yeah, let's give it a go.
Did you guys get to talk to him?
We did.
Crazy.
So just after, you know, I almost was crying. So, you know, looking back on this, like now since, you know, we've supported them, and I realized like how rare this is and how special it was. They're doing a sound check, which you're not allowed to watch. And naively, we kind of like stumbled into the empty stadium, was just like leant up against the wall listening to it. And they had the choir come on for a small section running through You Can't Always Get What You Want. Anyway, the sound check finishes and Mick starts walking like this, like towards us, and we're kind of just leant up against the barrier, and he just clocks eyes with me and then comes and walks towards us, and he knew exactly who we were.
Oh, that's awesome.
Shook our hands and then just, you know, it just started talking to us for like 15 minutes. You know, and I was just kind of like in my head like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh, it's Mick Jagger. And then he's kind of like, you know, talking about, you know, playing Argentina the week before in the stadium, and that, you know, the sound wasn't that good, but, you know, it should be good tonight. And I'm kind of just nodding my head, pretending I know what the hell he's going on about. Like, yeah, man, yeah, I mean, I feel you, you know, yeah, like pretending I know what it's like.
We played the Lincoln Imp 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we did the Lincoln Imp meet, and, you know, we know what that's like. You know, my monos was so bad that night.
It was cool that we played with them 2 years ago again, and we did like the Disney meet and greet again to like say hello, and he just bowls into the room and goes, hello Strats, and I was like, he remembers us.
Yeah, but again, like when we did those shows with them, they asked us to come back, you know, and with those big bands, whether it's Guns N' Roses, whether it's the Stones or anyone like that, it's very secured and locked down, you know. I mean, just out of pure respect, you just don't go knocking on Keith Richards' door, you know what I mean? Unless you are Johnny Depp or someone like that, you know, who's probably a bona fide celebrity. So we got to sort of like say hello to them and thank them for having us again. But that moment, the initial moment when we first did the show in Paris, that was something which was, you know, very rare, and we've been told is quite rare. So super lucky to have that.
Wow.
Did you guys ever think you'd be sitting in like top 40 pop radio stations in America when you started this?
That is what we've always wanted to do.
Really?
Yeah, that has always been the challenge and the mission that we've kind of set ourselves. I mean, to a lot of people, it's the impossible dream. Considering the state of rock, considering what a lot of top 40 stations play, you know, which is, you know, I have nothing against that whatsoever, but I always reminisce and celebrate a time, especially in the United Kingdom, where the last great age of rock music was probably the 90s, where, you know, Oasis could have a #1, and then the next week Blur would come back with a #1, and you know, these are chart-topping songs, and it was the same, you know, here in the United States, but with slightly different sort of like groups. And we've always wanted to create music which could compete potentially with the likes of Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift. I mean, you know, some people watching this will be thinking, you absolute like, you know, why would you even say that? But at the end of the day, if you ain't got a goal, then what's the point? You might as well aim as high as you can, because you got nothing to lose.
That's it. And if you keep aiming high, you're going to fall on something that's not too shabby
exactly.
underneath.
You know, it's like, I mean, that's kind of like what we think, and you know, that's how we listen to the music when we hear it back, when we're deciding the tracks for the album, thinking about singles, everything, like even sometimes the production. We're like, you know, how can we sort of like remain ourselves and communicate everything that it is that we're about, but yet have a song that has the potential to go up there and have it with like these giant pop stars, you know.
Well, that brings me to my next question. I was gonna say, how did you guys get into the Victoria's Secret fashion show? Because when I think of that,
Through
I
the
think
back door.
We joke with this band, we've got a few Trojan horses. We end up getting into places that are probably way above our pay grade, as it were.
Yeah, 'cause
But I mean, one thing that's amazing for us is that, especially when people say, how are you guys not huge on the top 40 stations, but you get opportunities like this? And it is, I think, the passion people have for this band, and so many people do believe in it, that, yeah, the heads of Victoria's Secret can book us alongside Rita Ora and Shawn Mendes and think, yeah, these guys are fantastic. I love their passion. I'm passionate.
But it was, but more importantly, you know, it was the music. You know, he heard the songs, and you know, he believed in the tracks, and that was kind of like, when you really think about that, that's super important.
Also got to thank Steve Berman from Interscope, because he was the guy that made the phone call.
Made that happen, yeah.
you guys got to close out the show, right?
We did.
We've got
did.
2 songs as well.
First time ever.
Songs, yeah.
First time ever a band's ever
Jeez.
had 2 songs.
And that a man got to wear the wings on the catwalk.
Yeah, I
Getting
basically forced everyone's opinion to let me wear the wings.
Wow.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's
Some of
a
the
huge
models were
deal.
not happy.
They were like, "Why are you wearing wings? Like, I've got to work so hard for these wings." And I'm
so
just
did I.
swanning in, like,
Yeah, so did I, mate.
So, what are the rules on that show? Like, did they just say go up there, have fun? Were you like allowed to like interact with them?
It was,
Yeah.
We were encouraged to, yeah.
Really?
it was,
Okay.
yeah,
Which is-
it is very. I wouldn't say it's like choreographed, because it really isn't. It's, you know, they do kind of let you do your own thing, but you know, we had some great kind of like directors who were. I mean, first of all, you run the show like 3 or 4 times.
Oh.
And even on the day, you do it twice. And then they kind of take the best bits of each, and then they put it into one single broadcast. But the funny thing is, when we were doing the first run through, the models weren't there. They were these stand-in people that had cardboard signs on saying, you know,
Kendall Jenner?
yeah,
No,
literally,
really.
like that, right? And they didn't have
Genuinely.
any of the fancy stuff, right? Which is, you know, the huge, massive bouffant dresses and all this. So I'm getting used to like my in-ears, because I've never done that before. So that was kind of something that was new.
You never use in-ears?
No, I normally just have monitors.
Oh, God.
But for the show, it was like we had to do it like that. So I was like, right, whatever, you know, I'm cool with that. So I'm kind of like doing my thing, getting to like know the stage, and then the models, well, the stand-in girls are kind of like going back and forth. Anyway, so it comes to the taping of the show, and then they walk on, and you know, the catwalk isn't that wide at all. It really isn't. And when you got 3 people, like I'm here, and then someone's coming and someone's going,
You're
essentially,
crammed.
and they're wearing these giant dresses. I'm like, if I stand on one of these skirts and something rips or she falls off, like, you know, we're going to be famous for
I
all
was
the
gonna
wrong
say-
reasons.
Yeah,
You know?
You're the most famous man in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it would go viral, but you know, that is something that kind of like was running through my head.
I genuinely didn't sleep the night before, because I had to go down the catwalk for my solo.
Oh.
And I was like, I know I'm going to knock them with my guitar, like one of the wings. And I kept replaying it. Well, not replaying. Had it in my head the night before, trying to go to sleep. You know, whacking one of the wings, and they fall off. And I was like, oh man. So when it came to it, I was literally so scared. And it was, but luckily, it was a lot bigger than I remembered in the horrible nightmare. It was shrinking.
Yeah.
The catwalk was getting thinner and thinner in my horrible dream the night before. But
Man, just imagine you knock Adriana Lima off that stage.
I know, she was
Yeah.
great.
what a way to go.
She was
for-
She was so cool. Like, for me, I found it like a little bit awkward, because I've never been that great with girls. And even now, again, like who I am on stage is kind of like a pretend person. It's something that I can channel, like my fantasies. And they're like, you know, Luke, just, you know, we need you to, you know, just interact with them more, you know, and like be cheeky and stuff like that. But there's a fine line between being cheeky and then a pervy little schoolboy, you know, where you're like,
Yeah.
you know, and I just didn't, you know, I'm not, you know, what's his face? I'm not Adam Levine, you know what I mean? I'm not there like giving it that kind of like, you know, the thing that he kind of does, and like, you know, just will take a girl and start dancing with them.
He's
you know?
smooth. I feel
He's
like
very smooth. I was kind of, I felt like Austin Powers, you know, like a 12-year-old Austin Powers, like, you know. all the
Yeah,
time.
baby.
And it's funny thing is, once you try to be sexy, that's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah, you probably would fail miserably.
You do, but it was funny. It's fun.
needs to be organic.
It does, but Adriana, she was that was again, that was kind of like, I was like, oh my god, thank you so much, because for the most part, a lot of them were interacting with me, and it was cool. Like, you know, they're as nervous as you are.
Mm-hmm.
This
I
is
mean,
the
they're working
biggest
their whole
moment.
lives to that point, and you know, you can see them. They're like shaking, some of them, and sometimes I'd look at them and. There's this thing where we both know, like, we're both doing something which is outrageous and huge for all of us. And at the very end, when Adriana was like dancing and stuff, I was like, oh yes, this is good. Come on, I'll just keep this going, keep this going. She's just like proper going for it, and I was, yeah, we're really grateful for her, because I think not only was it her big send off. So it was a very kind of emotional show for everyone that is a fan of her, and of course herself, but then giving us like that real time of day, so to speak, and almost like a little seal of approval. She was genuinely really enjoying it. So I think it came across, and it made for a great closing part of the show.
The Struts. We've covered a lot. I really enjoy this.
Great.
Young and Dangerous. That is the album that is the latest. It is out now. Body Talks, a record that deserves your time, deserves your ear. The album deserves your ear. Are we even focused on more music, or are we just going to tour this sucker and let Body Talks rise and see what else comes?
We have another single in the works.
Not on the album?
Which is on the album, which we want to sort of like really like push, but we feel that there's a lot to do still with Body Talks, and you know, we want to milk that as much as we can, you know, putting it crudely, because we believe in the song, especially the version with Kesha, so we want as many people to hear it as possible. In terms of new music, I think we might do a little bit of writing this year.
Cool.
But we're going to be heading out, we're going back to England, doing a tour, doing a bit of Europe, and then coming over here to the States for a couple of shows, going to Japan, and then we're going to be doing a Young and Dangerous tour in the United States, sort of like through the summer.
Nice.
Which is sort of being built up as we speak.
Why doesn't UK radio play you? Why won't Radio X?
Knows.
Radio X would be the one, right? Like
Radio. So you got Radio 1, which is kind of like the
that's
big,
the pop station.
It's the big one. I mean, but it's got a lot of.
But even the commercial stations, like Global Station, could play you, like Capital or Radio X.
No,
radio works completely different in the United Kingdom than it does here. Here you have like regional radio, and everything that comes with that. In the United Kingdom, it really is Radio 1, and then you have Radio 2, and then you've got like, you know, an umbrella of like slightly smaller ones, but you know, in some ways, sort of like engage audiences for different reasons.
Yeah, commercial stations.
Yeah. But
if you're on Radio 1, basically, then you're not. You have to be on Radio 1
to get everywhere.
To get anywhere.
I understand.
To
I
get
think
anything.
ironically, our music's so quintessentially English
that they
the
don't
English
want it.
actually don't. That's why France took off before us.
What
France and America and Japan and Australia have become bigger markets for us rather than our own country so far.
They don't want to be reminded of their reality.
But yeah.
I think as well, it's the funny thing is, the truth is actually we really have no idea, and it's all down to speculation. I can only go on what we've been told, you know, because, you know, for instance, Radio 1 has just passed the 6th single that we've given them since we began. So
that one was too pop, and then the last one, Body Talks, was too classic rock, and now it's too pop.
You know,
it's like, Ron, what the do you want then?
Do they tell you like we're not on this?
You get to see like a radio report that like your plugger will send you, and it will be like, this is great, but my audience won't get it, or like, you know, this is great, I'm going to add it, whatever. And for the most part, it's just been like a sort of like a mixing pot pot of like either it's too retro, or my audience won't understand this, or it's just too different. But it's just whatever. I don't know, but it's just kind of one
they
of those
will
things.
eventually.
They will eventually.
They'll cave on the 20th time we go in.
We
like, fine, off, we'll play you then.
Our mission, basically, since coming to the United States, and knowing, you know, we have a very small chance at ever organically creating a buzz in the United Kingdom for radio, has been, right, okay, well, let's go for the jugular vein of the music industry, which is America, right?
Go big.
And let's conquer top 40 radio with a song, and then, because trust me, whatever happens here, they have to play.
They
down
catch
there.
on every time.
All the time. I don't think people realise the amount of influence that America has on the United Kingdom music-wise.
It's way more than what the UK has on us.
Of course, yeah.
Definitely.
And I mean, dude, I've gone to bat for a lot of amazing records that started in the UK that I thought could be hits here. Dude, Little Mix, I will fight for those records all the time.
Good man.
They're amazing. And they're smashes in the UK. But like, for some reason, it's just not, the fire isn't lighting here the way it needs to light. It will eventually.
Yeah.
The same way
Similar
you guys.
story.
It's the same
I
thing.
mean,
But opposite.
what's interesting though is, I mean, not to blow too much smoke up our, but like when we do London in a month or two, we've sold out nearly 2,500 tickets in London, and that's without radio. So
Anything.
something's happening, but it's just.
I think sometimes it's hard to get a little bit frustrated, but then you kind of pat yourself at the back, because there are bands that are being played by Radio 1, etc. in the United Kingdom who won't be able to sell Shepherd's Bush out.
That's the thing. They can't sell as many tickets.
You know, and that's kind of like the funny irony of the whole thing.
And you try to understand that, but you actually really can't, right?
You can't. Like, you can't. It's a time and a place, and I think it's to do with so many things. I think it's to do with the people that sit down and listen to the music, like, you know, what they think maybe of us, and maybe they've built some sort of image in their mind of what we are or what we represent. I mean, the good news is, as far as I'm aware, we've got a fantastic plugger in the United Kingdom who, you know, for what it's worth, she's been busting her ass trying to get something happening, and she's determined to bring as many people to our show in London, which I'm super confident if they get off their ass and come and see it, at least then they're going to be like, you know what, like, that's a great live band, that's a great show, and maybe they'll get it.
But even if it's not radio, I understand that. You need to be on Radio 1 to get everything else. But even if it's that, like, Chris Moylan mother effer who's on Radio X or those other rock stations, I mean, bring them out. They should be playing the record.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, I mean, they played at Body Talks once. No,
Jesus.
In Love with the Camera once at 20 past 10 at night.
They're all
Hold on to something.
They're all to be fair, I mean, we've had there's a magazine called Kerrang, who have their own radio station in the United Kingdom, who have been really supportive with the magazine and their radio station, and Planet Rock as well, who again have done great things with us with the magazine and their radio show. But yeah, like you say, like Chris Moyles, Radio X, and all that, like they're all passing on it, like, simultaneously. It's almost like someone's in on this really, like, sick joke which has been going on for like 7 years. You know,
it's one guy.
Yeah, like, hey,
I got
did you hear that strut seal? Yeah, we pass on it too.
Who was playing you in Paris and France? Was it NRJ?
It was WeFM.
WeFM.
Is that still a thing?
Yeah,
it is still a thing.
Yeah, who you know, which we are eternally grateful for. I mean, the ironic thing is, we asked them, like, why did you start playing us? And they were like, we thought you were huge in the UK.
I think it's the same here as well.
You know,
so good. We should probably not tell you how slow things are in the UK.
And
we're huge, mate. Seriously, we're underplaying every time we come here.
That's a sick joke.
I remember people, like, you know, I remember when we first come over to the States and be like, so, guys, the Struts are in the studio. So, guys, you've conquered the United Kingdom, your hometown, and now you're here. And I'm like, wait, what? It's like, no one knows us in the UK. What? You serious? This is
Okay,
Billy.
start again.
Okay, Billy on 61.7.8. Alabama. We're gonna start again.
Billy on 60 what?
61.8. Okay.
Yeah, prove them wrong. Right? Add that to the list of motivating factors.
Oh, yeah, another one.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
The list goes on.
Should be.
Not to come in here and sound sour and moan about our home country. I mean, we're grateful for everything, but
No,
you
we're-
feel the
Nah.
frustration. You know,
No, that's why
I
we're here.
understand
Man. Like
that.
we're here because you guys are showing us support. I mean, that's more than anyone can ask when you're in a band and when you're an artist. I mean, it's great that you guys are feeling something in the music and it resonates with you, and that's why we're here.
Do you guys ever get offers to have your music in like video games or movies? Because it reminds me of like playing Tony Hawk when I was younger.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like a lot of those older games.
yeah, that's,
We get a lot of sports coverage.
I was thinking
ESPN.
that, like those type of things.
Good
Like,
sings.
They love it. They love
Yeah.
it. The hockey, ice hockey.
we're
we
on
get
a
lot of
baseball
stuff.
game. We've got a lot of MLS soccer stuff, which is cool.
That makes sense. It reminds me of playing video games growing up, which
Yeah.
that's what I played.
A few movies it's been
We've
in.
had we did a version of Ballroom Blitz for the Edge of 17
The Haley Steinfeld
with Haley Steinfeld,
movie.
which is actually quite a good
It's a
movie.
good film,
It
that
was
was.
good, yeah.
By the way, I like the fact that you guys do covers. I loved your Hotline Bling mashup.
Oh, thank you.
It was really cool. Those are not risks. I mean, just creative freedoms that I think maybe some other people who are trying to build a rock band would be like, we're too cool for that. You know what I mean?
I definitely think we're too cool is not a phrase that we use quite a lot.
Cool and the Struts. I mean,
They don't really go together.
No, we
No.
celebrate being unique, and that goes for our choices as well that we make. And that version of Hotline Bling was just something that just happened again very naturally, and it was basically just having a laugh, and we were like, oh, this is kind of cool, should we just do that, and it worked. But we got some more covers actually in the works that we're gonna sort of like lay down and put out, because I think we I think for me and Ads as well, one of the earliest things we kind of connected on was playing covers in the pub down the road from where Adam used to live, and we used to play with all these musicians in the village. And we'd play like the Stones, we'd play AC/DC, we'd play for like 5 hours straight.
But what you enjoy about covers?
I love cover bands, by the way.
because you get to turn your brain off.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter if you up because it's not your song. So it's like
There's no obligation.
no, and it's like, and when you're playing, there's I don't know. It's just, it was nice to play in pubs with loads of people that you knew there. And you'd have a load of beers, and it doesn't really matter if you up because no one gives a
It's safe.
They're just there to have a good time.
It's kind of like, it's almost just music in its purest form, because isn't that what everyone does, is just imitate to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
That is what starts anyone. A kid just doesn't like get given a guitar and then just looks at himself in the mirror and just starts playing. No, he sees someone, like he sees Elvis Presley, he sees like a hero, and it's like, that's what I want to be. And then it's kind of like when you're playing the covers, it's music, it almost in its purest form, in its most sort of like adolescent. It's just people just getting together, having fun, and it's also a good way as well of testing your own material. I mean, if you can get together in a room and play Jumpin' Jack Flash, or Rock and Roll Star by Oasis, if you can get the same feeling when you're playing your own tunes, of like that looseness and like it feels
That
natural and it
comfort.
feels like it's been written before, then you're onto
Interesting.
something.
That's I understand that, and I do understand. Comparing it to the beginning, adolescent form. You're right. I mean, the opportunity for you to sing songs that maybe sparked inside of you what you're doing today, and you get to do it at a place in your life where you're not a kid anymore. You're a little bit more talented. Your skills are refined. It's sick.
It's cool, and it's also a great way of bringing people in as well. Like we did a couple of really great shows in Nashville at the end of 2018, and Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine just turns up and is like, "Hey, can I play Dancing in the Dark with you guys by Bruce Springsteen?" And we've been doing it on and off on the tour, like, you know, all the time. And we were just like, "Yeah, man, let's do it." Okay.
I can't
It was
imagine
insane.
him wanting to do one of our songs. You know what I mean? That would be quite.
But what I'm saying,
bizarre.
I mean, that's why it was perfect, because it's loose.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Adam said, it's like it's kind of, he came along, ran through the chords with us. We loosely went through the structure, pretty much how it was going to start and how it was going to end. It was like, right, we'll just make up everything else that goes on in between. And he was absolutely fantastic. You know, starts putting the guitar around his head and doing all those signature sounds and everything. But it's cool.
It's one thing the Foo Fighters do very well, because Luke went up and was singing Under Pressure with Dave Grohl playing drums. And then Taylor singing Bowie's parts, and so they'd do that every night. And we played 4 nights at the Roxy in LA, and we had, who do we have? Chad from the Chili Peppers.
Oh, sick.
We had Jade from my girlfriend.
Lil
She came up
Mix.
and sung a cover with us as well, and we just had a bunch of
We
guests.
had Randy
Tommy Lee.
Jackson.
Randy Jackson.
came
Randy
out.
It's
Jackson.
going to be a yes from me, dog.
Yeah, he literally, what did he do? He was walking off stage after he did a song, and he says to Jay, he's like, "Is your mic on?" And Jed's like, "Yeah," and he's like, "The Struts, yo!" And you're like, "Yes, we made it." It was a pretty mic dropping
That happened
moment.
very quickly as well, how he got involved. I think Jade saw him in a lift, and I went for a bass lesson with him like 3 years ago. The guy's amazing.
Hold on. How'd you find Randy Jackson?
So he ends up, we were staying at the same place,
Okay.
and then I think Jade bumped into him in an elevator, and he still had my number from years ago and gives me a call. Says, "Oh, I hear you're playing," and I was like, "Do you want to jump up with us, mate?" And
He said no to begin with, didn't he?
well, he was like, "Oh, I just want to come watch the show," and then we saw him, and he's like, "So we're doing this, dog?" I was like, "Yeah, we
He
are."
saw how
mate."
packed the house was. He's like, "This is my chance to come back."
Him and Jed, literally, me and Ads did something sort of acoustically, and while we were doing that, the rest of the band were off stage. Jed's going through the song on his phone with Randy, and Randy's like doing it completely by ear.
But he's playing bass as well, and I play bass, so I'm at the same time telling him which parts we play, and I've then got to learn it on guitar to then go up and play that at the same time, because we didn't want 2 basses up there. So it was a shambles, but it was a lot of fun.
It's pretty good.
But it's a cover he was doing, obviously.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
did. Yeah, we
And
did
that's the
Bowie.
comfort. You
Again,
can do
that's
that.
the thing.
Exactly.
It's like, look, it doesn't matter. Like, it'll be great.
It's-
Tommy Lee came up, did something
Jeez.
from Motley
Some
Crue. That
big
was
names
fun.
you guys bring up there.
I know.
That's LA for you, then. That's Sunset
Yeah.
Strip.
It was good.
But in the UK, not a single celebrity shows up.
No.
We got a mate up once, didn't we?
Jade from Little Mix, I hear, will go.
True.
Yeah.
With us, yeah.
If they're lucky.
If we're lucky, yeah.
I mean, we're saying this about covers that, you know, it can be a bit sloppy, but might just be our ethos on it. People want to take it way more seriously. I'm just thinking, like, yeah, the covers, it's fine. But who knows?
We've covered a lot.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, the Struts. You are good people. Thanks for bringing your
You're
energy
good
here
people.
and
Thank
giving us time. It really means
Thanks
a
for
lot.
giving us
Thank you
that.
very
Thank
much.
you.
You guys are awesome.
Thank
Everybody,
you.
listen to the Young and Dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Worth Your Ear Body Talks. It's a hit record. It feels good, man. Thanks for hanging.
Thanks for
you.
having us.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yay!
I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. If you did, please subscribe and also check out our podcast. There's a link in the description, and also comment and like and do things. Other interviews are on the screen somewhere, so click them. Thanks for watching.